Hi, thanks for joining again. Today I'm going to go into the topic of performing queries and using filters to narrow down the results of your query using what is called a type test. So a type test is a way to narrow things down in your results based on their type. What you see in this example is a generic table that's performing a query. It's looking at all of the activities that are currently in this model. And what we can do is do a meta chain that's based on these activities. So let's create a new custom column. And in this case, we'll create a meta chain navigation from the activities to the nodes. So the nodes that are in an activity will include all of these things such as activity parameter nodes. It will include things such as call behavior actions or accept event actions. All of these things are considered nodes. So if we wanted to narrow that down to a specific type of thing in the results, what we can do is use a filter and use a type test with that filter. So let's go back in, edit this, and now if you notice, Cameo automatically selected activity node as the result type. And that works very well. So what we can do now is go to create operation, and we're going to be using this type test. But before we do that, we'll start with the filter. So the filter allows us to narrow down what is in the results. So what we can do is take the meta chain navigation that we had and drag that into the input. And this tells the filter what we are essentially starting with. And then what we'd like to narrow it down to will be what is in this predicate portion. So for the predicate, we'll use a type test. And in this example, we can simply select one or more different types of elements in the model. So for this, let's say we only wanted to see call behavior actions in the results. We can select call behavior action, say OK. And as you see, we're now left with only the call behavior actions. So that works very well. It's a great way to narrow down what you're seeing in your results. So let's say we wanted to also do that with the blocks that are in our model. And maybe we only wanted to see blocks and their part properties. So if we look at the block definition diagram, we'll be querying all of these blocks. And in this case, I'm really only concerned with seeing maybe this block and the part properties that it has. So what we can do is query all of these blocks and then use a custom column to do another meta chain by looking at the block and all of the owned members, or we could look at the owned attributes. So let's look at owned members in this case and see what we get for results. Notice in the results what we have are a lot of different types of things. So these activities are considered owned members. There are part properties, there are value properties. There's actually a legend included in this. There are diagrams and connectors and all sorts of things. So if we wanted to narrow it down to only see part properties, for instance, what we can do is use that filter again. So we'll go back to create operation, use a filter, and we'll drag this meta chain navigation into the input. And then for the predicate, use the type test. And in this case, let's search for part property. And we will say OK. And now what you're left with are only those owned members that are actually part properties. I hope this has been helpful. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Also, if your team is in need of MBSE expertise, please feel free to reach out to STC and we'd be happy to help. Thanks a lot.